What if the person meant to protect you was the one you needed protection from? In June 2013, 16-year-old Talia Winters vanished during a family vacation, leaving behind her phone, wallet, and a hidden journal that wouldn't be discovered for 7 years. How well do you really know the people closest to you? Would you notice if something wasn't right? Could you be living with a monster and never realize it? Today, we're diving into a case that proves family secrets can be deadly, and sometimes justice takes a decade to arrive. What terrible truth would make a brother turn against his own father? Stay until the end to discover the chilling revelation that finally brought closure to this haunting case. If you're new here, welcome to JPX Story File. Make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss our weekly true crime investigations. The Winters family represented everything most people aspire to. From the outside, they were the epitome of American success. A gorgeous two-story colonial in the prestigious Oakwood Heights neighborhood of Providence, Rhode Island, complete with manicured lawns and a view of the bay. Dr. Reginald Winters stood at the center of this perfect portrait. As chief of cardiothoracic surgery at New England Medical Center, he was both respected and feared. The community knew him as the doctor who organized free clinics for underprivileged neighborhoods and who never missed his children's academic ceremonies. People trusted Reg with their lives, recalled hospital administrator Janet Calloway. He had these intense blue eyes that made you believe he could fix anything. His wife Valerie had built her own impressive career in pharmaceutical sales, consistently ranking among the top representatives in the Northeast. The couple met during medical school, though Valerie had switched to pharmaceutical work after their first child was born. In recent years, however, Valerie had begun experiencing what their close friends described as concerning health episodes, unexplained fatigue, dizzy spells, and periodic memory lapses that doctors couldn't quite diagnose. Talia Winters, their firstborn, had inherited her father's analytical mind and her mother's tenacity. At 16, she'd already secured a prestigious internship at the Coastal Marine Research Institute. Her bedroom walls showcased meticulously labeled collections of shells and marine specimens. Teachers consistently praised her as thoughtful and perceptive. She asked questions most adults wouldn't think to ask, her marine biology teacher remembered. 13-year-old Micah completed the family unit. Unlike his academically driven sister, Micah found his joy in music and art. Still, he looked up to Talia with unwavering admiration. Neighbors often spotted them walking home from school, heads bent in deep conversation. The Winters' annual 2-week vacation to Port Hadley, a quaint coastal town in Maine, had been a family tradition since Talia was 5. They always rented the same blue-trimmed cottage overlooking the harbor, as Dr. Winters called it during television interviews following Talia's disappearance. But family videos shot during their 2012 trip the year before Talia vanished revealed subtle cracks in the flawless facade. In one clip, Valerie's hand trembles noticeably as she passes a plate to her husband. In another, Talia abruptly leaves the dinner table when her father begins speaking. And most telling, perhaps, was the tense exchange captured between father and daughter on the cottage porch. June 17, 2013 began like any ordinary day at the Winters Vacation Cottage in Port Hadley. There was breakfast on the deck overlooking the harbor, a light breeze carrying the scent of salt and pine. The family had been in Maine for 4 days of their planned 2-week stay. The morning's conversation centered around a planned boating excursion to Sentinel Island, a nearby nature reserve known for its lighthouse and bird sanctuary. According to later police statements, Talia mentioned feeling unwell, having a headache and slight nausea, and asked to remain at the cottage. It wasn't unusual for Talia to want some alone time, Micah would later tell investigators. She liked having the house to herself sometimes, especially when she was working on her marine journal. Security footage from the harbor showed Dr. Winters, Valerie, and Micah boarding their rented 22-foot motorboat at 10:17 a.m. Multiple witnesses confirmed seeing the family out on the water throughout the day. The harbor master recalled speaking with Dr. Winters around 3:45 p.m. about incoming weather patterns. The family returned to shore at approximately 4:30 p.m. The cottage's security system logged their entry at 5:03 p.m., but what happened next would transform their lives forever. "Talia, we brought you those crab rolls you like," Valerie called out. When no response came, they assumed she was wearing headphones or had walked down to her favorite Tittapools. By 6:15 p.m., with no sign of Talia and no response to calls or texts, concern began to grow. A neighbor's security camera captured Dr. Winters jogging down the beach at 6:32 p.m., presumably looking for his daughter. By 7:45 p.m., the first call to local police was placed. Port Hadley Police Chief Douglas Monroe arrived personally at the cottage by 8:30 p.m. The father was composed but clearly concerned, Monroe noted in his initial report. The mother was visibly distressed. The brother appeared shocked, almost numb. Talia's phone, wallet, and beach sandals remained in the cottage. Her bed was made. No signs of forced entry or struggle were apparent. The only items seemingly missing were the clothes she had been wearing that morning, jean shorts and a blue University of Rhode Island Marine Sciences t-shirt, and her field notebook. By midnight, the search had expanded to include Coast Guard vessels scanning the shoreline, 9 units combing nearby woods, and dozens of local volunteers sweeping the small town. Security footage from businesses showed no sign of Talia. No one reported seeing her leave the cottage area. Detective Lydia Smith from the Maine State Police Major Crimes Unit arrived the following morning. A 20-year veteran with particular expertise in missing persons cases, Smith would later describe the Winters case as deceptively complex. Within 48 hours, Talia's disappearance dominated regional news. Within a week, it had caught national attention. The image of Dr. Winters at press conferences, composed, authoritative, pleading for his daughter's return, became instantly recognizable. "Someone knows something," he repeated in each appearance. "Please help us bring our beautiful girl home." The community rallied spectacularly. Hundreds joined search parties. Local businesses printed thousands of flyers. A Facebook group dedicated to finding Talia gained over 50,000 members in just 2 weeks. Yet, as days turned to weeks, the question remained: how could a smart, capable 16-year-old simply vanish from a small tourist town in broad daylight? What would you do if your child disappeared without a trace? What would be your first suspicion? As the investigation entered its second week, the initial flood of tips and leads began to dry up. Detective Smith faced a puzzling scenario. A missing teenager who left behind all her belongings in a small town where strangers were immediately noticeable. "We had 3 working theories," Smith explained. Either Talia left voluntarily, someone she knew took her, or a stranger managed to abduct her without anyone noticing. The runaway theory quickly lost credibility. Talia's academic record was flawless. Her college fund contained over $80,000. Her friends described no unusual behavior, no secret boyfriend, no conflicts that would prompt her to flee. However, the investigation hit a wall with physical evidence. Summer rain on the night of Talia's disappearance had washed away any potential footprints or trace evidence near the cottage. The family's rental car showed no unusual mileage or GPS activity. Witness statements complicated matters further, and one shopkeeper recalled seeing a girl matching Talia's description walking with an older man near the harbor. But surveillance footage showed this was a different tourist family altogether. A gas station attendant reported a distressed young woman in a car 3 towns over, but this lead dissipated when the driver was identified as a college student returning from a bad date. By day 10, friction developed between Dr. Winters and the investigation team. Now led by Ezra Smith, the investigation began exploring the family's background more deeply. Dr. Winters grew increasingly frustrated with our questions about family dynamics, Smith noted. He wanted us focused exclusively on stranger abduction scenarios. During one particularly tense exchange captured on a police station security camera, Dr. Winters pointed a finger at Smith's chest, saying, "You're wasting precious time. My daughter is out there somewhere, and you're here questioning me about my work schedule from 3 months ago." The doctor's public composure contrasted sharply with these private moments of anger. He continued making emotional appeals on camera while simultaneously hiring a private investigation firm without police cooperation. As the one-month mark approached, the case file had grown to over 800 pages, yet contained no definitive leads. The FBI had joined the investigation, but reached the same frustrating conclusions. Talia Winters had seemingly evaporated. But there was something about Dr. Winters' story that didn't add up, a crucial detail that would remain hidden for years. If you're finding this case intriguing, hit that like button and share your theories in the comments below. By June 2015, 2 years after Talia's disappearance, the Winters family existed only as a hollow reflection of its former self. The case had gone cold. Media interest had waned. The Facebook group dedicated to finding Talia had become largely inactive, with only occasional posts from Valerie or distant relatives. The pristine colonial house in Providence now stood as a monument to grief. Neighbors described drawn curtains, neglected gardens, and the absence of the family dinners that once filled the backyard with laughter during summer evenings. Valerie Winters' decline proved the most visible. Once polished and articulate, she took an extended leave from her pharmaceutical position that gradually became permanent resignation. Her mysterious health issues intensified dramatically. Medical records obtained years later revealed multiple emergency room visits for symptoms including tremors, confusion, and temporary vision loss, all dismissed as manifestations of profound anxiety and grief. Mom started hiding bottles around the house. Micah later revealed in his journal. Dad would find them and explode. Their fights would shake the whole house. These fights culminated in Valerie moving into a small apartment across town in August 2015. The separation was never formalized through legal channels, a detail that would later prove significant. Dr. Winters maintained his hospital position and community standing, though colleagues noted his increased irritability and obsession with controlling details. He rejected therapy for himself or Micah, insisting they were handling it appropriately as men. Perhaps most disturbing was the doctor's abrupt decision to remove all traces of Talia from their home. In October 2015, without consulting Valerie or Micah, he packed away her belongings, the marine specimens, the science awards, the childhood photos, and placed them in storage. He said it was for Mom's sake, that seeing Talia's things was making her worse, Micah wrote. But he did it while Mom was visiting her sister in Boston. When she came back and saw Talia's empty room, she collapsed right there in the doorway. Micah, now 15, began documenting subtle changes in his father's behavior. His journal entries from this period reveal growing suspicion. Dad has these mood swings now. One minute he's totally normal, talking about hospital politics or whatever. The next minute he goes completely quiet if anyone mentions Talia. He keeps the key to the storage unit on his personal keyring. Won't let anyone else see her stuff. Found him going through old videos of our Port Hadley trips at 3 a.m. When I asked what he was looking for, he shut the laptop so fast it nearly broke. The once close father-son relationship deteriorated rapidly. Dr. Winters enrolled Micah in a military-style boarding school for his junior year, allegedly for disciplinary problems, though teachers and family friends reported no concerning behavior from the boy. Dad said I needed structure, Micah later told investigators. What I really think is that he needed me gone. I was watching him too closely, asking too many questions about things that didn't make sense about the day Talia disappeared. During rare home visits, Micah observed his father's increasing isolation. The doctor installed an elaborate security system. He began checking Micah's phone and computer. Most tellingly, he refused to discuss Talia except in carefully rehearsed phrases that matched his media statements. Have you ever noticed someone's behavior change dramatically after a tragedy? What would make you suspicious? 7 years after Talia's disappearance, the case had fallen into that quiet limbo where missing persons cases often rest, not officially closed, but no longer actively investigated. Micah Winters, now 20, had deliberately chosen Carnegie Mellon University, as far from Providence as he could reasonably go while remaining on the East Coast. His computer science studies provided both intellectual challenge and emotional escape. His roommate would later remark that Micah never displayed family photos, never mentioned his sister except when directly asked, and received no visits from his father. On October 12, 2020, the package arrived at Micah's campus mailbox. Plain brown paper, careful handwriting, return address from Beatrice Lawson. The name meant nothing to him initially. Inside, wrapped in tissue paper, a water-damaged, salt-stained notebook with marine life illustrations on the cover. The enclosed note read, "I found this while renovating the boathouse on my newly purchased property in Port Hadley. The previous owner, Mr. Fletcher, mentioned your family used a vacation nearby. When I saw the name inside, I realized this might be important to you. I'm sorry for your loss." Micah recognized the notebook instantly, Talia's field journal. The one item missing from the cottage on the day she disappeared. His hands shook as he opened it. The first 30 pages contained exactly what one would expect from a dedicated young marine biologist. Sketches of tide pool creatures, water salinity measurements, observations of local bird populations' feeding patterns. Talia's precise handwriting filled the margins with questions and hypotheses. Then, on page 37, the content shifted dramatically. The entry dated June 15, 2013, 2 days before her disappearance, began. "I need to document this somewhere in case anything happens to me. I can't believe what I've discovered about Dad." What followed was methodical, detailed, and horrifying. Talia described noticing patterns in her mother's mysterious health problems, how they worsened during family meals prepared by her father, yet improved during his hospital conferences when he traveled alone. How her mother's symptoms matched those of chronic metallic poisoning. How she had secretly collected and labeled samples of her mother's food over 3 weeks. "I took Mom's coffee mug to the university lab yesterday during my internship. Dr. Paulson let me use the equipment for what he thought was my special project. The results confirmed everything. Heavy metal concentration far beyond any accidental contamination. Dad is poisoning Mom." The final entry, dated June 16, the night before her disappearance, detailed the confrontation. "I confronted Dad tonight after Mom went to bed. He didn't deny it. He just stared at me with this expression I've never seen before and asked very calmly what I planned to do with this theory of mine. When I said I had evidence and would go to the police if necessary, he just nodded and said, 'Let's discuss this after tomorrow's boat trip. Your mother doesn't need to hear about your concerns yet.'" Talia wrote that she had agreed to wait, but only because she needed more time. Her plan was meticulously outlined. While the family was out on the boat the next day, she would take her samples and lab results to the local police. She would request protective custody for herself, Micah, and her mother. The entry ended, "If something happens to me, look for the samples in my marine collection box, under the false bottom. Dad doesn't know about that hiding spot. I labeled everything and included copies of the lab results. I'm scared, but I can't let him hurt Mom anymore. Tomorrow, this ends one way or another." The final page included a hastily scrawled note. "He just came into my room asking strange questions about tomorrow. Said he wants to make it special. Something feels wrong. If anyone finds this, please protect my mom and brother." Micah's discovery of the journal set off a chain of events that would finally crack open the long-dormant case. His first call wasn't to his father or even local police. It was to Detective Ezra Smith, who had remained haunted by the investigation's failure. "When Micah called me, I was working homicide in Boston," Smith recalled. "He didn't explain much over the phone, just asked if we could meet immediately. The next morning, he walked into the coffee shop carrying that water-damaged journal in a plastic bag. His hands were trembling, but his voice was steady. 'I know what happened to my sister,' he said." The Maine State Police officially reopened the case on October 30th, 2020. This time, with Talia's journal as a foundation, investigators focused exclusively on Dr. Reginald Winters. Forensic accountants uncovered a financial motive hiding in plain sight. In 2012, just months before Talia's disappearance, Dr. Winters had taken out additional life insurance policies on both his wife and daughter, with benefits totaling $4.3 million. More disturbing was the discovery that Valerie's pharmaceutical company provided platinum-level life insurance to executives. a policy Dr. Winters had encouraged her to upgrade just weeks before their fateful vacation. The financial pressure wasn't immediately apparent in 2013, explained financial investigator Mira Patel. But digging deeper, we found Dr. Winters had made several high-risk investments that were failing catastrophically. Medical school debts he'd hidden from his wife. A vacation property in Barbados purchased under a shell company. He was looking at potential financial ruin unless something changed dramatically. Armed with Talia's journal, investigators secured warrants for Valerie's complete medical records. Toxicology experts identified patterns consistent with thallium poisoning, an odorless, tasteless metal that produces symptoms easily confused with numerous conditions. Most critically, blood samples stored from her hospital visits showed elevated levels that had been dismissed as laboratory errors. Thallium is known as the poisoner's poison, toxicologist Dr. Eleanor Chun explained during the investigation. In small doses over time, it creates a constellation of symptoms that mimic everything from anxiety to multiple sclerosis. A medical professional would know exactly how to administer it to avoid detection. A fresh forensic examination of the Port Hadley cottage revealed crucial evidence that had been missed during the original investigation. Using luminol testing in areas not previously examined, technicians discovered traces of blood between floorboards in what had been Talia's bedroom, blood that DNA testing. The evidence suggested Dr. Winters had returned to the cottage alone during the boat trip, Smith explained. We believe he confronted Talia, who was planning to expose him, and then returned to the boat where his wife and son were waiting, unaware. What piece of evidence do you think was most damning? Do you believe Talia's disappearance could have been prevented? On November 14, 2020, Dr. Reginald Winters arrived at the Providence Police Department headquarters in response to what he believed was a request for updated contact information regarding his daughter's case. Instead, he found himself in interview room 3, facing Detective Smith and 2 FBI agents. The interrogation video, later key evidence in his trial, shows a man initially confident, then gradually deflating as investigators methodically presented their evidence. The journal, the blood evidence, the boat's GPS data, the financial motives, the toxicology reports from his wife's medical records. For 3 hours and 17 minutes, Dr. Winters maintained his innocence. His demeanor changed only when Smith mentioned a new search warrant for the storage unit containing Talia's belongings, specifically targeting her marine collection box with a false bottom. The video captures the precise moment of surrender. Dr. Winters straightens in his chair, adjusts his glasses, and asks for water. When the detective returns with a cup, the doctor's entire effect has transformed. I suppose there's no point continuing the charade, he says, his voice clinical and detached. You'll find her samples and lab results exactly where she said they would be. Talia was always meticulous. What followed was a confession devoid of emotion, delivered with the same precision he'd once used in surgical procedures. He described returning to the cottage while Valerie and Micah slept on the boat. How Talia had confronted him with her evidence. The argument escalated when she refused to listen to reason. She said she was going to destroy everything I'd built, Dr. Winters explained flatly. I tried explaining that her mother's condition was psychosomatic, attention-seeking behavior. Talia wouldn't listen. She became hysterical, threatening. It wasn't premeditated. I simply reacted to protect my reputation. The medical examiner would later confirm the cause of death matched Dr. Winters' description. Manual strangulation followed by blunt force trauma to the head when Talia fell against the corner of a table during their struggle. Dr. Winters then detailed how he wrapped Talia's body in a tarp from the cottage shed, weighted it with diving equipment, and returned to the boat. While his family slept below deck, he diverted to the deep water location revealed by the GPS data. There, he disposed of his daughter's body in over 200 feet of water. I knew the currents in that area, he explained. I knew what would happen to evidence in those conditions. Despite this calculation, specialized recovery teams located Talia's remains in December 2020 using underwater drones to search the location indicated in Dr. Winters' confession. The recovery brought long-delayed closure to Valerie and Micah, allowing them to finally hold a proper funeral for Talia. But perhaps the most chilling part of this story isn't what Dr. Winters did. It's how he managed to hide it for so long. Dr. Reginald Winters' trial lasted just 11 days in April 2021. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence. The journal, the confession, the forensic findings, and perhaps most powerful, Micah's testimony about his father's controlling behavior in the years following Talia's murder. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all counts: first-degree murder, attempted murder, evidence tampering, and insurance fraud. Judge Martina Rodriguez sentenced him to life imprisonment without possibility of parole, stating, "You violated the most sacred trust that between a father and his children, a husband and his wife. You took a bright young life to preserve your reputation and lifestyle." For Valerie, the trial brought answers but also devastating guilt. "For years, I thought my health problems were in my head," she said in her victim impact statement. All while my daughter recognized what was happening and died, trying to protect me. Following extensive chelation therapy to remove residual thallium from her system, Valerie has regained much of her health. Today, she channels her grief into advocacy, establishing the Talia Winters Foundation, which funds research into difficult-to-detect poisonings and provides support to families of missing persons. Micah, now completing his PhD in computer science, has developed specialized software to help law enforcement analyze GPS and location data in missing persons cases. "Talia was always the protector in our family," he explained in a rare interview. "I'm trying to continue what she started." The case has prompted significant changes in missing persons investigations nationwide. The Talia Protocol now requires thorough examination of family dynamics and potential domestic motivations from the outset, rather than focusing exclusively on stranger abduction scenarios. Port Hadley installed a memorial bench overlooking the harbor where Talia once collected her specimens. The plaque bears her favorite marine biology quote: "The sea holds answers to questions we haven't yet learned to ask." Do you think justice was truly served in this case? What would be an appropriate punishment for such a crime? The Talia Winters case stands as a sobering reminder that danger can exist within the walls we consider safest. Beyond its tragic outcome, the case offers crucial lessons about domestic abuse, coercive control, and the importance of trusting instincts when something feels wrong. What makes this case particularly haunting is how many warning signs were present but misinterpreted, explains forensic psychologist Dr. Maya Richardson. Valerie's mysterious illnesses that followed patterns. Dr. Winters' increasing isolation of family members. His extreme reactions when questioned about Talia. These are classic indicators of coercive control. Most poisoning victims never realize what's happening to them. Symptoms often mimic common conditions: fatigue, confusion, hair loss, gastrointestinal issues. The key pattern is symptoms that worsen after meals or drinks prepared by the same person, yet improve when away from them. Talia's journal revealed her critical thinking saved her mother's life, though she couldn't save her own. Her independent research skills, access to testing resources, and methodical documentation created the evidence that eventually brought her father to justice. Yet had she shared her concerns with authorities before confronting her father, the outcome might have been different. Talia made the mistake many victims make, confronting the abuser directly, notes domestic violence expert Gabriella Hoffman. Always secure your safety first before confrontation. Micah Winters' courageous pursuit of truth demonstrates how one person's determination can bring closure to seemingly hopeless cases. "I spent years afraid to look too closely at what happened," he reflected recently. "But Talia deserved better. She died trying to protect us. The least I could do was finish what she started." The Winters case has become required study in forensic psychology programs nationwide, teaching future investigators to recognize that family dynamics often hold the key to mysterious disappearances. If this case impacted you, please hit that subscribe button and notification bell. Until then, stay safe and remember, sometimes the monsters aren't hiding under the bed. They're sitting at the dinner table.